Oh, okay.
Yeah, last weekend that is. Okay, so we'll get started. Thank you all for joining us this afternoon. How's everyone doing? How are the panelists doing?
Good. Thank you.
Doing well, Sanjay.
Yes, thank you. So we are at a Fireside Chat webinar today, May 28, 12:30 p.m. We are going live. We're also doing live streaming of this webinar on Facebook, on our oGoing channel. And today is an awesome topic. It's 7 innovative trends in manufacturing for the next decade. Thank you all for joining us today. This is our last webinar on manufacturing between oGoing and Think AI. We embarked on a 3-part webinar series, and today is a culmination. And we're really happy to see you all online. Let me quickly introduce my co-host for today's webinar, Manish Bhardia, President of Think AI, and Sarika Goyal, Project Leader Think AI. It's been really great to collaborate with you both for our 3 webinars this month. Let me start the presentation here and show our faces. You can see us live as well. Manish and Sarika, how are you all doing?
Good, Sanjay. Thanks. Yeah, it has been great to partner on multiple webinar series with you.
Sarika,
Thanks, Sanjay.
Did you want to add a few words, Sarika? Go ahead.
Sure, it's been a lot of fun. We've learned a lot from each other. It's been great partnering, and it's been good experience.
Absolutely. So Manish is the president, Sarika is the project lead. I'm Sanjay Dalal, the founder and CEO of oGoing. And Manish, did you want to share a few words about Think AI and what you all do?
Yeah, just a quick recap, pretty much focused on cloud services, latest technology like artificial intelligence, business intelligence, integration, and support services. We are a Microsoft Gold partner, and right here in Orange County. Thank you.
Thank you, Manish, for that quick intro. And a quick intro about oGoing and what we do. Think of oGoing as a LinkedIn for small businesses. We are a business community. Everybody's welcome to join oGoing.com. It's free to join. We have over 100,000 members now. We're growing organically. And it's a great platform for you to promote your business, promote your brand, and importantly, make some verified and authentic connections. Each new business that joins oGoing, we verify them and make sure they're legitimate business. So you can be rest assured that you are connecting with real companies and real business owners on oGoing. One of the interesting things that we also help doing is when you join the oGoing community and you create your business profile, and as you're active and you share your content, your posts, it helps you boost your SEO. And many oGoing members, their websites, they rank first, because of them being active on oGoing. So again, I welcome all of you to join our community. And before we get started and introduce Sanket Mehta, our speaker, as well as our collaborator for today's webinar, I want to take a quick moment and thank everybody, in the front line, especially all our healthcare workers, in the US and all over the world. And they're definitely keeping us safe and healthy during this pandemic. It's a very interesting time that we are in, very challenging actually for a lot of us. And if we can, let's pray and have 10 seconds of silence for over 100,000 folks, who have perished, who have died because of the COVID-19 pandemic here in the US, and many more around the world. Our hearts really go out to their families and all the friends. So if you may, can we please do 10 seconds? Thank you. Thank you. Thank you all for your prayers. So now let's get into the webinar, and I want to start off with introducing our presenter for the day. I would say more of a collaborator that we're going to have a great conversation with. Good afternoon, Sanket. How are you doing?
Hey, Sanjay. Thanks for having me. I'm doing well. How about yourself?
We're doing well here. Thanks, Sanket, for joining us and participating with us. It's a real honor for us. Really grateful. I know you're starting off something new and exciting in Bay Area, but I'm really happy that you could actually do this with us. So thank you.
No pleasure. It's all
And,
mine.
and a quick intro about Sanket. You probably have seen his bio, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time on his professional bio. Of course, he's a growth-focused business leader, uber passionate about technology, always looking for the next big thing. And his passion and acceleration lies in initiatives into automotive, new age automotive, connected devices, industrial IoT, which we're going to talk about in a second, digital health and telecom. So a lot of fun things he's doing on the professional side. But then I said, Sanket, this is not all of you. There has to be more. And eventually he opened up a little bit. So not a lot of us know that, but he was a state gold medalist and a national level bronze medalist in roller skating. And actually trained to be an actor from the Prithvi Theatre in Mumbai. So here we have with us a man of many talents. So Sanket, let me just ask you point blank here. Did you really audition for a Bollywood movie or was that a dream growing up?
Well, first of all, thank you for the introduction. But yeah, if I were not doing what I'm doing, I probably would have been an actor. I mean, in all honesty, because yeah, back in school and college, I spent a lot of time, pursuing acting as a career. But eventually decided, that was not something that I was too keen to pursue after a certain period of time.
Yeah, wow. So that's and of course roller skating as well, which I had tried it, but I just couldn't balance myself. I think I was falling more than skating, I think.
Yeah, it's been a while that I put on my blades, but would love to kind of get onto them again.
That's pretty awesome. So I wanted to share this quote with Sanket and our fellow participants. Thank you all for joining. Joining this webinar. Really appreciate you joining. It's a quote from Henry Ford, which a lot of us know. One of the greatest American innovators of the earlier 20th century, and his words are still relevant today. He said, "If you always do what you always did, you will always get what you always got." So it's a wordful. If you always do what you always did, you will always get what you always got. And it's a good reminder, this quote, Sanket, for everyone who loves to make products, who love to keep tinkering, keep changing and keep innovating. And as many of you know, recently Ford company, they started making 50,000 ventilators, in 100 days, in a remarkable service to our nation. Their simplified ventilator design in a license with GE Healthcare. They are trying to respond to the needs of COVID-19 patients. And they're operating on air pressure without the need for electricity. So, it's about manufacturing, Sanket. And so let me ask you this: how is Ford able to do this? How are they able to manufacture something that's mission critical in such a short time? Are they doing something different here?
Well, it's interesting, Sanjay. So let's face it, right? COVID-19 has been a war-like situation, period, right? And extraordinary times call for extraordinary measures. And this is what we are kind of seeing at play as we speak, right? Which made the President of the United States invoke the Defense Production Act. And, in his own words, the provision says, accept, perform, and prioritize, the ventilator production, right? So now, we all know that Ford and GM are not medical devices companies. They are known to be making automobile. Yeah. And, for them to really start working on making FPA class 2 and class 3 grade products was no easy feat, right? And so what Ford did and what GM, of course, followed and, they did is, partnered with medical devices companies who had the designs available, who had the know-how of how the manufacturing of those ventilators could be done. But the interesting part about manufacturing and why the DPA applied to the automotive companies is because of a few reasons, right? Um, a few that I can think of is automotive companies have the scale and the ability to do mass production. And that is what was really needed, right? We all realized that, we did not have enough ventilators. And as a result, we had to quickly produce several of them. And who better than, the automotive companies who have the manufacturing prowess, expertise, and skills to kind of go about doing it. The other one is, of course, the expertise in terms of retooling the manufacturing setup, right? So you cannot really build a ventilator in a manufacturing of car setup. So you really have to retool. But because of the manpower and the expertise that the automotive companies have, I think the automotive companies were probably tasked to do this. The third reason that I can think of is the access to the supply chain, right? Because you really needed to get a lot of these raw material, if you will, and components, because even in a ventilator, which have been made not the ICU grade, but these simpler ones, needs anywhere between 200 and 400 parts, right? So in order for us to really be able to source those components, you really need the access to the supply chain, which the automotive companies had. And finally, what you probably saw from Tesla, they came up with their own ventilator design. Yeah. Because they kind of repurposed the components that go into Model 3 and use a ventilator using it. Well, there has been a lot of criticism in terms of what these ventilators have come out to be. A lot of doctors have said they probably might not be able to use them because they are not medical grade products, right? And there could be more issues arising as a use of these ventilators versus not using them. But again, I'm no medical expert, so I'm going to keep my opinion to myself. But I think it's true that these companies have been tasked to do it because at that point in time, the government felt that they were best suited to produce something, and it's always better to have something rather than nothing. So that's what Ford and GM were asked to do, and given the availability of skills and resources, they probably were the best bet.
Absolutely, that's a great explanation. Thanks for sharing with us on that. Which brings us to the main question for you. A lot is happening in manufacturing, Sanket. I think there's been so many big changes in the last, I would say, 5 to 10 years. So before we get into the 7 trends, which is our topic for the day, can you give us kind of like what's the lay of the land? What has changed? Where are we today? I'm hearing things like Industry 4.0. I mean, maybe just give us a summary of that, if you may, Sanket. Thank you.
Absolutely. So I think, Industry 4.0 has now become, the buzzword in the industry, and go to any manufacturing setup. And I'm sure that, we have several attendees today who probably are speaking the language of Industry 4.0 in the day-to-day terms. But before we get to Industry 4.0, I think, I'm just going to take a step back to kind of talk a little bit about the industrial revolutions that have gone about, right? Because, we got to 4.0 when we started with 1, 2, and 3. So let me just kind of take a quick session on history to kind of get to 4.0, because that will set the context for the conversation. Industry 1.0, right? That the first revolution the first industrial revolution started around mid to end 1700s, right? And the invention of steam engine, if you will, was basically the initiation point. Because that gave rise to the locomotives. It brought about revolution within the textile space. Also, within the farming industry, there was a major shift that started to show up in the 18th century. This also led to some rather macroeconomic phenomena. That kind of happened as a result of some of the things that were happening in the industrial world, and that was urbanization, right? There was the first time, we started to see the factories that we see today. So larger scale production facilities started to come up. The problem was that, the factories were being, utilized for building products, but by people, who were unskilled labor, right? So these were unsafe places to work. People used to put in a lot of long hours, and there was very limited productivity. So also there was no way to really kind of control the output, if you will. So this revolution, kind of continued and kind of built and evolved for good 150 years or so, until about, early 1900s. That's when the Revolution 2.0 happened, right? And this was because in the past 150 years, we saw, the invention of electricity. We saw a lot of advancements in science, and also the need for mass production because, the population of the world started to grow. This corresponded with, the invention of the gas engine, right? We also started to find faster modes of communication, faster modes of transportation, because what was the need of the hour was mass production and getting things faster, right? This also was a time when Henry Ford set up the first factory and, started to produce the Ford Model T on a factory line. Right. So this is when the real factory kind of a setup came about, and automotive has played a very important role in this industrial revolution that we've seen all these years. 50 years down the line, right, around 1950s or mid 20th century, is when the digital revolution or the industry 3.0 happened, which was brought about through the invention of electronics, right? Everything went from analog to digital. The introduction and invention of semiconductor chips and microcontrollers happened. Also, the digitization of machinery happened. So, rather than having everything which was a moving part and in the physical world started to take up shape in the form of digital world, right? So again, as we speak today, we are probably still in the transition mode from industry 3.0 to 4.0. And also, see, there is no demarcation. There is no fine line which says, okay, this is where, a certain revolution ends and the new one kind of takes up. So we are still in the process of transition, but industry 4.0 is all about smart manufacturing, right? If we have to really put it in the right words and, the way it is being described today, it's the era of the cyber physical systems, right? So this is the interaction of your physical systems connected via internet to the computational systems, right? And everything that we hear around robots, data-driven decision making, artificial intelligence, cloud computing, and Internet of Things are all tenets of Industry 4.0.
That's a great summary. Sorry, you had one more point to add, Sanket? Or?
No, I mean, the only other thing that I would add, and, this will probably help us kind of as we lead through the conversation on the 7 trends, is, what's really happened in the last 10 to 15 years, right? Because that's what was one of the other questions that you also asked. Yes. And I think, what has really happened in the last 10, 15 years, which has also kind of expedited the whole industrial revolution for 4.0, is one, advancement of automation. Right? We've anyway seen a lot of automatic processes kind of getting into the manufacturing setup, but there has been a significant, advancement in this world because of the drastic reduction in the machine size and the operating costs. On the other hand, the rise of robotics to support the human labor, right? This is a term called as cobots. I don't know if you've heard about it, but cobots are not to replace the factory workers, but rather to assist the human workers to bring about greater productivity. Also, there has been a digital transformation in the manufacturing space. This is more like the continuation of the Industry 3.0. But, this has further been expedited through the ubiquitous nature of the sensors, right? We have been able to miniaturize the sensors, and those have really been able to help us gather a lot of data. And the last trend that I have seen is, people have really started to leverage local sourcing, right? While, there was a trend to kind of outsource manufacturing to cheaper destinations, instead, what has really been done is people have started to think, how can you continue to kind of leverage, the economies of scale that you would get in developing countries, but at the same time keep certain critical components, the basic communication, quality check, etc., local. So all of those things have really started to shape up in the last 10 to 15 years.
Absolutely. And I think then that brings us to the 7 disruptive, if you may, innovative trends in manufacturing, Sanket. And I think you kind of brushed on that a little bit. The first one being IIoT. Initially, I thought it's a typo, but it is a variation on IoT. So what is IIoT and what does it do? I mean, am I going to have IIoT all around me? What's happening?
Yeah, so I think, just simply put, term IoT is meant for consumer usage, while industrial IoT, as the term states, is meant more for manufacturing and supply chain, right? The tenets of both of these things remain the same. It's all about availability, connectivity, and intelligence. But at the same time, one is used in consumer setting, the other one in an industrial setting, right? What has really brought about IIoT is, again, what I spoke about, the miniaturization of sensors, which has now become ubiquitous, which has generated a lot of data, which in turn gives us a real-time understanding of what's really happening in every department of a manufacturing setup, be it inventory, be it warehousing, manufacturing, machine health, logistics, even, once the goods have been produced, and until they get sold to the market, you are able to kind of keep a track of where exactly that particular product lies. But just long story short, what has really happened and the benefits that industrial IoT has really been able to kind of come our way is minimizing the downtime in a factory and maximizing the output, right? That's just to summarize what industrial IoT has brought about.
Understood. That's a great insight, Sanket. And what about another trend that's getting mentioned is digital twins? I know you mentioned that.
Yeah.
It's one of the 7 things. What is digital twins? I mean, is this a new way of I guess, coining an industry? I mean, what are the areas that benefit from this technology?
Yeah, so I think, again, digital twin has become very, very prevalent in the last few years. And, almost everybody is talking about it, especially when you talk about the application of it in an industrial setup. So if I have to explain digital twin, it's nothing but, digital representation of a physical product in all its aspects in a virtual world. Right. And, the part which says all its aspects is really important, because when you talk about the various aspects of a product, you're talking about the mechanical aspect, the electrical, software, embedded systems, flow mechanics, manufacturability. So basically, people might kind of relate it to simulators that we have seen, but, simulators can only represent a few aspects and few dimensions. Whereas this kind of is a digital replica of an actual physical product.
Wow, that's fascinating. So you're saying we have digital twins everywhere nowadays for most products, or what products are more conducive?
Yeah, so I think it makes a lot more sense to have a digital twin for super expensive, high lead time kind of products versus smaller products. Because what digital twin really enables, an industry to do is to make changes faster, because now you don't really have to go about, tooling your factories to build a prototype. You can actually make a virtual prototype, make changes, build an optimal solution, also improve the efficiency of your robots, right? Because, when you have a physical system sitting right there in front of you in a virtual format, you can actually kind of tweak a lot of things around it and kind of condition the environment to make sure that you're able to build better robots, which goes into actual production. It is very cost effective, right? So for example, if you have to build an aircraft, right, rather than prototyping various components, because there are several that go into it, you can actually, replicate it, right? And then of course, it saves a lot of time and, reduces the dependency on externalities. So you don't have to worry about a third-party manufacturing facility manufacturing a prototype for you and sending it back to you. And so, kind of shortens the time to market, if you will.
And makes total sense. Yeah. So another big buzz is AI. I mean, AI, artificial intelligence. We had a previous webinar on RPA, which is robotic process automation. Audience loved it. They love you here today as well. But AI is so much more than RPA. I mean, how is AI then changing the world of manufacturing, and where do you see it in the next 10 years?
Yeah. So, first of all, AI is a very broad term, right?
Yes.
And it is a portfolio of technologies rather than one technology itself. If I had to put it, RPA or robotic process automation can be considered to be a subset of AI, though some people may disagree with it because um, RPA is not supposed to be intelligent, right? RPA is supposed to make and automate the mundane tasks, which are repetitive, to reduce the human efforts, whereas artificial intelligence is meant to replace the human labor altogether. If that makes sense, right?
Yeah.
So also, RPA kind of deals with more structured data. So you have a code which kind of repeats itself and automates a process, whereas artificial intelligence is all about building models through unstructured data. Right.
Wow.
So that's a major difference when you kind of use a term artificial intelligence and use the term RPA.
And so you're saying the biggest application of AI could be in the next 10 years?
So I think, as we speak, there are several things where artificial intelligence is currently being used, right? One of the biggest uses of AI has been around predictive maintenance. And, maintenance, as we know, is very crucial in an industrial setting for various different reasons. But unplanned downtime of the plants or the machinery has cost several $1 billion to the US manufacturers, right? But if you are able to predict, when a failure is expected to occur, it can save a lot of cost by avoiding those unplanned downtimes. So predictive maintenance is a major use case that the manufacturing setups are kind of working on. The second one that I can think of is better quality. So we are producing a lot of different things in a very short time, and as a result, we can sometimes ignore the or tend to kind of ignore quality, but the margin of error on certain products is extremely low. And if you're not really able to kind of maintain quality, you can lose the market share very quickly. AI is being used to kind of keep a track of quality. Also, better human and robot collaboration is happening through AI, and several other applications. The list could be very, very long, and we can go on and on. But what I do see is that AI is going to kind of remain prevalent and is going to be applicable across various different aspects of manufacturing, be it the design phase to prototyping to manufacturing and to maintenance.
Yeah, so we're going to go a little bit over the time here. I'm looking at the clock; it's 12:58. So I believe we'll wrap it up by 1:05. I'm seeing some audience questions as well come in. Feel free to add your questions in the Q&A and chat area. I mean, this is a really insightful discussion with Sanket here. I'm learning a lot today. Manish, did you have a question or two? Manish or Sarika, how's it going?
No, I think the question we have in the chat, we can definitely cover that.
Yeah, so one of the questions came from Yash. Are there any products or companies specifically focusing on digital twin? Sanket?
Yeah, I mean, all the large companies. Siemens has been, one of the largest proponents of, digital twin, and ABB is the other one. I think every large GE, every large company that deals in, very expensive machinery or setting up, manufacturing setups for some of these large manufacturing hubs, have really been working on digital twin for a while. But then there are a lot of startups working in this area as well.
Oh, that's great. So startups also, that's good. That's good.
Absolutely.
So I'm going to do some rapid fire question now, Sanket, because of the time. So let's talk about AR, VR, smartphones, tablets, headsets, very ubiquitous now, entrenched. Where is the biggest impact of AR, VR, you think?
So I think AR VR has been one of those technologies which has been profoundly adopted in today's manufacturing setup, right? One, it's easy to adopt. It's not too expensive. It is not intrusive. You don't really have to sell your kidneys to really be able to kind of adopt AR VR.
Yeah.
One, because the legacy devices such as your computers, tablets, mobile phones are capable of doing it. But there has also been a lot of research being done by companies such as Microsoft, Facebook, Google, Samsung, even startups such as Aether Labs, right, who are making very specialized devices, head-worn, body-worn devices, which are capable of doing a lot of AR/VR. I think there are several applications again, but if I have to touch upon the most important ones, what I've seen more importantly. In manufacturing, people can make digital work instructions on an AR or a VR. That way, the human error kind of gets reduced. But more importantly, for remote training of associates, I think, when factories were shut down, I know several of my customers back in the days, were kind of exploring solutions around AR and VR as to how can we utilize this time to train our resources. Then there's also remote maintenance, right? People do not have to physically go to a plant or a manufacturing setup to really do any sort of maintenance activity. A lot of these things could potentially be done remotely. So, it has really brought about increased safety, increased productivity, also, lowered the operating costs, and of course, improved the product quality.
That's fantastic. I think another big trend is 3D printing. Additive manufacturing, 3D printing, those are big buzzes going on. I mean, 3D printing can do so much in such a short time. Can you elaborate on that and where that's going?
Absolutely. And I think, in the interest of time, I'm just going to kind of keep it very short.
Yeah.
Happy to kind of entertain any other questions through email, chat, whatever later on.
Yeah, of course.
But 3D printing is massive, right? 3D printing also is another trend which has kind of caught up. And it's no longer just hypothetical, right? Companies are really using 3D printing to produce products, especially certain material products such as plastic products, could very easily be 3D printed. And what really is being done, especially when you look at industries such as medical devices, and one of the applications is prosthetics, right? Every human body is very unique, and if you lose a limb, your limb is not exactly going to be similar to somebody else's. And if you really have to kind of enable somebody to kind of get a prosthetic leg or a prosthetic hand or something for that matter, you can actually build a precise product which fits your need as compared to giving you something which is built for a generic purpose. Also in the automotive industry, which has a lot of plastic parts in a vehicle, 3D printing is being used extensively at scale. And there are large 3D printers. The fact that 3D printers have started to get a lot cheaper than what they were before, and as it gets more and more prevalent, the cost will continue to reduce. 3D printing will continue to gain momentum. Also, 3D printing has led because it's additive, right? Manufacturing versus subtractive manufacturing that we've been using before.
Yeah.
You are actually saving a lot of material, in turn, saving the environment. There is speed to market. You can basically do rapid prototyping, et cetera, et cetera.
That's fantastic. I mean, it's I'm hearing things like sub $1,000. That's pretty phenomenal.
Absolutely. Yeah, you can get it on Amazon.
Yeah. Sanket, another trend, the cybersecurity, manufacturing, that sounds like an odd couple. Are we seeing something here that's different here?
So the way I look at it, when you have internet and you have Internet of Things that we spoke about and artificial intelligence that we spoke about, you can't really miss out on cybersecurity, right? Where you have smart people, you have smarter people who we sometimes call as hackers. And, we have to really be careful about, how we're going to kind of keep those people at bay. And that's really important. So I think, the tenets of Industry 4.0, Internet of Things, connectivity, digitization, software, cloud computing, et cetera, all the technologies, the fancy things that we kind of speak about today are not cybersecurity risk averse. And hence, in order to make sure that factory workers are safe, we're not incurring expensive downtimes, there is no theft of intellectual property. There are no financial frauds happening. It's really important that cybersecurity measures are implemented, and there is a lot of research going on in this area.
That's a fantastic point. Yeah. And I think the last question I have, and then another one which is more about futuristic. I know you talked about a term called frugal manufacturing, and that caught my attention. And I'm all for cheap manufacturing, but I don't know if that's what it means. Is it cheap or is it something different?
So yeah, I think we are kind of in the midst of a crisis, and everybody is kind of looking at innovative ways of doing things. And while frugal has a meaning in itself, which is kind of doing things cheaply, and everybody will appreciate things done cheaply, but more importantly, right here, when I refer to frugal, and I want to credit my previous employer duly for this coining out this term. Frugal is an acronym, okay, for today's conversation. Frugal stands for flexible, remote, unconventional, local, and agile, right? So we're basically looking at all of these trends in one. And as we kind of navigate this crisis and even beyond, we really have to kind of think about all of these terms, right? Flexible because you probably might not have as many volumes, at least in the near future. How do you make sure that you remain profitable and productive, even though you're going to be generating lower batches of products, right? Then you have remote working, because a lot of factory workers are not going to be coming to the office. How can you leverage technology and have those people also be productive? Unconventional because, hey, this is not something that we are used to, and human behavior kind of is always averse to kind of changing, but hey, we have to change, right? So it's going to be unconventional. Local because while we all want to think global, you also have to start thinking local, because the supply chain may be in distress, or certain countries may not really be able to provide certain components within the time, but you still have to produce. So you have to start thinking local. And then agile, because all of these things really needs an agile thought process. So in my opinion, this is more like a mindset change, which will change the state of the industry rather than a trend in itself.
Absolutely. And by the way, a lot of the attendees are still here, so thank you for staying put. Please do send your questions to Sanket. You can send them in Q&A as well as chat. And I have one last question for Sanket, before we wrap it. I'm still waiting for attendee questions. 7 big trends in manufacturing, we already talked about. Let me just share the screen here so we can quickly review all of them. It's a list, but it's an important list. You all can see it here. Second, my question is on one of our favorite brands, Apple. A lot of us use Apple iPhones. I mean, of course, there are a lot of good smartphones available in the marketplace now. Steve Jobs invented it. We have that connection to Steve, and Apple, and over the many years now. Where do you see an iPhone? I mean, it's a manufacturing marvel, right? I mean, the amount of technology they're put into this, phone, and I'm trying to think like forward, like 10 years from now. Do you think the phone will be the same phone as we see it today? What's going to change?
Well, Sanjay, yeah, that's a multi-billion-dollar question, right? And if I tell you, I have to kill you, right? Because hey, this is money. Honestly, I don't have a very good answer, but yes, I can tell you for sure that the form factor, the application, and the way the phone is really used by the consumers is going to change significantly, right? It's not really going to be the way we have been using the phone for the past 2 decades. It's definitely going to be quite different than the phone of today. And the pace at which the invention has really gone into making technology smarter, we can only kind of imagine as to what the technology, especially around mobility, is going to be over the next 10 years. But I honestly don't have a very good answer.
That's fine. Not a lot on there, but I guess if we all knew, we could all do pretty well.
Absolutely.
Okay. Manish, Sarika, did you have questions for Sanket? Go ahead.
Well, we work in AI, and Sanket, you're saying about AI getting towards more replacing the job, but that is very much in future. Right now, how do you see AI coexisting with people, helping them instead of replacing? Because I know it's a far that time is far. Or
And I agree, Manish. I think it's going to be transitional. I honestly don't think that AI is going to completely replace humans, right? If at all, what is going to happen is AI is going to enable humans to get even more smarter, right? So rather than humans doing the manual tasks that they are doing today about lifting the products and putting them on the manufacturing lines, they're going to start thinking of how can they build better products who can do that work for them, right? So I think I don't expect that the humans are going to get replaced. But even today, right, I think I did speak about this a little bit earlier. Predictive maintenance, right, is one of those areas where you can actually see a good use case of AI being used, and that in a way is enabling us to kind of save costs and reduce failures in a manufacturing setup. Apart from that, uh, AI is really helping humans perform better through the likes of cobots, etc.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, my favorite application is, I think before we started, we talked about last weekend, my son and I went for a quick camping trip in Lone Pine. And one day I would like to just tell the phone, hey, find me a great Airbnb, 2 weeks from now, which costs less than $200 a night and has a beautiful view of the Whitney Portal. And if you see it, go book it for me.
Yeah.
I just need to send it to my phone and it will do the rest for me. And that day, I hope it comes soon. I know it can be done. It's just that we have to trust a lot of systems for that to happen.
So there's one concept that kind of just comes to my mind when you talk about artificial intelligence from the story that you gave, right? There's a concept of generative design, right? I don't know if you've heard about this before, but generative design is I as an individual, I'm going to say, hey, this is the material, this is what I want, this is the form factor that I want, this is the budget that I have, and these are some of the constraints that I'm going to kind of tell the machine, and the machine's really going to come out with multiple permutations and combinations of the product, and I can choose which kind of fits my need. So this is a concept of generative design, which is also being enabled through artificial intelligence.
Yeah, that's awesome. No, I think Sanket, I think I wouldn't be saying anything less of if I tell that you are a manufacturing Wikipedia of sorts, I guess. You have so much knowledge, you had a lot of great insights. I think we can go on and on, but really thank you for sharing, a lot of good insights today. For the next decade, I think manufacturing is a very fascinating field. When I was trying to invite participants to our webinar, initially I just thought there should be just one thing called manufacturing. Then I was scanning all these people on LinkedIn, and there's so many categories inside manufacturing that I was like at least 10 to 15. So always gaining more knowledge. Thank you again for helping us hopefully see a little bit of the future. This is our last webinar on manufacturing for this month. Thank you all attendees for joining us. And if you have follow-up questions, feel free to email it to us, and I'm sure Sanket will be happy to answer, either via email or on LinkedIn. Everybody, please stay safe. These are definitely challenging times. Stay safe, stay healthy, stay hopeful, and I'm sure we're all going to come out of this together. So thank you all again for joining. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
thanks, Sanket. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.